VIXO, and we'll talk about link conversions in universities.
So first, for those of you that don't know me, I know a lot of you do know me. I'm Cindy Stone. I have worked at VIXO for 6 months. Previous to that, I worked here at Home Video for a while. Been doing business objects for, I don't know, about 20 years I've been working with the tool. I started when I was 12, I think. You guys were not supposed to laugh, but that was not a joke. Anyway, so yeah, I've been doing this for a very long time. So just a little bit about VIXO. I like to say we keep the brands you love running. Not me personally, but I make sure that when you go to Starbucks in the morning, you're able to get your coffee. We keep those machines in order. If you ever want a slushie, we make sure those machines are maintained. So we do facilities management for lots of different companies. Starbucks and 7-Eleven are our 2 largest customers. For 7-Eleven, we literally do door-to-door service. I mean, if their toilets are plugged, they call VIXO. If their slurper machine doesn't work, they call VIXO. And we are very on top of things in the summer for 7-Eleven. They have lots of, there's 7-Eleven Day where you get a free Slurpee and all kinds of events throughout the summer. So that's what we do. So as I say, I like to say we keep the brands you love running. So we had a conversation, Amanda and I, about dates. And she was kind of new to universe creation and kind of had some questions. And so we started talking about, and we came up with a bit of an agenda of just different things you could do with dates within the universe. I kind of bridged over a little to the course because I can't help myself. I just get going and I can't stop. So we'll talk about like creating date filter objects and different things you could do. We'll talk about predefined query filters, building prompts into dates. So there's some cool stuff you can do. We'll talk a little bit about dates versus details. I'll give you a little of the world according to Cindy, because I think that's important. We'll talk a little bit about report filtering. I had some stuff yesterday, just some miscellaneous thoughts that kind of came to me. It looks like I got dates versus details twice. Also some new functionality that was added, I think in one of the floors, I'm not sure where, about a date time versus a date formatting. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. So let's start with date filtering objects. So there's lots of different ways you can do things. This is just one of the ways you can do it. So in most of the universes that I've built, we have created objects like current day minus 1. You can do anything. Current date minus 7 days, current date minus 15 months. You just, we have a list in our universes. We have a list that's 15 objects long of all the different things you can do. So I started out very good and gave you both Oracle and SQL, but I tell you what, I got lazy and I just stuck with Oracle after that because that's what I have. So I'm sure we're all adept at Googling how to do things. And, so you just are going to use the code base in your database. So to get the current day, to get yesterday's date, if I Oracle, I'm just going to do trunk to get the grid of the time and do sysdate minus 1. If I have SQL, I'm going to use cast get date, again, minus 1. And I can just kind of use that methodology to get whatever dates I need. So in our databases, or in our universes, I should say, we have like current day minus 1 through, I think, 7 listed out individually. And then we go to like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so you can always get whatever group of dates you want. So the benefits of doing it that way is it can be used on any date in your universe. And this is really the best benefit, right? So I can use it on my create date for a service request. I can use it on my create date for a customer. It doesn't matter. It's not specific to a certain date. I can use it anywhere on any date in my universe. And it's easy for users. They can just grab it to do any kind of date math. You can utilize this technique. So I added a couple other things that I do routinely. So I can use kind of the same technique. And you see this is where I got lazy. I just gave Oracle here. So, sorry?
One slide in.
I don't know. Because I had to, I have Oracle, so I could easily do it really quickly. To do SQL, I have to like Google it and then say, is that right? So, yeah, so it was Friday afternoon when you slept. It was how to get to happy hour. Anyway, so you can do things like the first and last date of the month. I use this pretty routinely. You can also do things like first day of the quarter, the first day of the year, and then I just kind of gave you a screenshot of how I would use it in a report. So I would go ahead and bring whatever my object is. In this case, I used SR create date, and I just said between current day minus 7 days, so 7 days ago, and yesterday. You can also utilize this same technique to define other formats. So a lot of databases I've worked with, instead of having, and this is because this is one of those things that Cindy doesn't like, they didn't ask me, dates are characters or they can be number strings. So I can kind of utilize the same technique by using, if it's a character, I can use the to-char, again, these are Oracle, but whatever my date is, and then format it like YYY, I can also then take that and turn that into a number. So a lot of databases that I've worked with, they don't have real dates, they just have number strings. So some people think it's faster to do it that way. Some ETL developers will convert it to a date, some won't. So if you need, you can kind of use that same technique to do your dates. Okay, so you can also create a predefined query filter. So with a predefined query filter, you're going to create a, in this case what I did was to select the SR, read what I did, the SR create date between the current date minus 7 and current date minus 1. So this is the same logic that I put in the report, but this time it's in a predefined query filter. So the user can just drag it into the report and use it. The benefit is if you have a lot of reports that are in the last week, then you can build these predefined query filters. It makes it very easy for your users to use it. So when I'm in the report, I don't have to keep creating the same stuff all the time. They can be super complex. I've seen them super, super complex. They can also be as simple as I have up here. Users, when they're creating reports, they can't really change them at all. And so it's easy for users. The downside, I don't think I put a downside slide, but these are specific to one object. So if you have a bunch of date objects that you use all the time, you have to create a bunch of predefined query filters. So that's a downside or an upside, it depends on how you look at it. I have designed some universes that every date had predefined query filters. Just depends on how you want to set it up in your organization. You can also do some creative things with using predefined query filters. You can use a case statement with it and have a prompt, and if they don't answer the prompt, you can feed it yesterday. So you can just things to kind of get yourself thinking, just to get your creative juices flowing. And then in your report, all I have to do is drag it over. So they show up now, right in wherever you put it in the universe, they show up along with those objects in the report, and I can just drag it right in. Another thing you can do is you can build a prompted date right directly into the object. So I have not necessarily used this technique with dates, but I have used it with things like client members. So if I wanted to ensure that my users always put some client object in a prompt, I would do this. So whether they do a prompt or not, they're forced, or whether they put a filter or not, they're forced to do a filter. But you can do the same thing with a date. And basically the way you do that is in your where statement. This screen here is direct from the universe, so I have a select statement to select the service request open date, which is the code in my universe. And then there's a where and there's a prompt. So what happens is, you'll see that on the next screen, is that when anytime I use that object in a report, the prompt's going to pop up. So again, the benefits, it forces the user to enter a date or a date range depending on how you build the object, even if the user forgets to add it to the query. Again, it's easy for users. Downside is they can't really change it. Anytime they use that object, they're going to get forced to. So you only want to utilize this if you really wanted to make sure that they always put a filter on something, and there's many types of objects that you might want to do that for. And then on this screen, you see that I added the object to the results objects. I have no query filters, but as soon as I hit run, it pops up with a date prompt. So I've used that actually quite a bit over the years. This is where I kind of crossed over a little to reporting. You can also use hard-coded dates in reports. I don't ever really recommend that. However, sometimes it's useful if you're in the midst of developing something and I don't want to have to answer prompts all the time, or I can just hard-code it. So just adding it to be complete. You can also add prompts directly to the report by just building the prompts in the report. So here's where you get a little of the world according to Cindy. So in the world according to Cindy, I think prompts are the most flexible. And any reports I build, I always put prompts in them. And so a little plug here for Infoverse. If you're not using Infoverse, you should. The reason is I add prompts to the report, and I can control that when I schedule it in Infoverse, right? I can use macros however I need to get those dates. But if somebody needs to run that report for some other date range, they can just run it and they get prompted for the date. So this is what I always recommend as the kind of the gold standard, at least in my opinion. Okay, so miscellaneous data. We can't talk about dates without talking about time on there also. So just a little bit. So between versus, you can do between as a query filter, or you can do it's greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. So if you're using a date time field, it's important to note that if I say I want data between 7:1 and 7:31, what the system does when you put in 7:1 and 7:31 is it does 7:1 at midnight and 7:31 at midnight. So even though in your head you want everything, at least I think you would, you want everything that happened at 7:31, you're not going to get anything that happened on 7:31 unless it happened at midnight. So if you have time in your database, you're going to want to use either greater than or equal to 7:1 and less than 8:1, or when I build the universe, I always put two date fields. All of my dates at Vixo have times on them, so I give you an object that's called date TS for timestamp, and then I give you an object that's date. So, and that's what I've done here. So you just use in Oracle trunk your date field, and then I can use between effectively. I could still use greater than and less than if I wanted to. It's still going to work, but again, in my world, I think this is easier for users. It's easy for us to understand. It stops at midnight, but you know, Joe in accounting is not going to realize that, right? So I always like to show both date objects because sometimes you need the time, but most of the time, you know, you really don't. So as I talked to my DBA yesterday, he said you should mention indexing if you're talking about dates. So you're going to want to work with your DBA on this. So you want to make sure that all of your commonly used date fields are indexed. It's also important to make sure you're indexing what gets used. If I'm using time all the time where I work, then I would probably want to index that. But if I'm mostly using the truncated version of the date, then that's what I want to make sure gets indexed. So your DBA can help you to figure out what needs to be done. Just I like to work very closely. We have a great DBA, and I just bring stuff over to him all the time, and he helps me figure out how to make it be better. So this was his contribution. Okay, so date, dimension versus detail. So in the universe, when you're building date objects, you can build them in multiple ways. So I remember back in the early days when I used to train Universe, and they would show you the main date as a dimension, like I have in this screenshot on the left, and then all these other objects in there as details. So you could do like month of date, year of date, whatever they were. Your other option is to create all your date objects as dimensions the way I have them over here. So just as a review, for those of you who don't use details a lot, details give you additional information about a dimension. So technically, what you see on the left is accurate, right? Because it gives you more information about the detail. So why would we use one over the other? Anybody have an idea? Anybody have an idea which might be better? You can't answer the second one. Why do you think the second one?
Isn't it more than much better than?
That is, she just said the bingo answer, right? You can merge them. I can't merge details. Now, I know in one of the later versions, I can now merge variables,
Yeah.
but and this is another one of those in the world according to Cindy, I just think details for dates are stupid. In my mind, if I'm gonna have the year, the quarter, the fiscal years or whatever, I'm gonna probably have that for multiple queries. I mean, in my world, I have a lot of multiple queries, so I wanna be able to merge things together. So, you know, I would always create them as dimensions. I might be off on the version, but in one of the recent releases, they've added a new data type for date. It used to just be date. Now it's either be date or date time in the universe. I don't know if you know, JF, when that was added.
I'm not sure. I think it was for
So it's bit me several times because it defaults to date. And then, so I'll build my object in the universe, and then I go out to try to test it, and I get an error, and it doesn't work. And it's because all of my date objects, or the base date objects that come from the database are all date time, and so you need to change it to be date. So just kind of mention what it is. So in this case here, I have it truncated, so it really just is a date. Date formatting in the universe. So, we all probably know we can format dates and reports, and sometimes we do that. I am of the mind that I want my end users to have to do as little of that as possible. And I also want to assure that my reports across the organization have a consistent look and feel. So for me, that means date should be MM/DD/YYYY. That's how I like them. Other people like them different ways, but that's the way I like them. So again, you get the world according to Cindy. So all you need to do to access the menu is just right-click on whatever object you want to format, select edit display format, and then you can go in and you can select one of the dates, and you can do a custom format. And if you look over on the right side there, you can click on those little drop downs. I should have thought of JF's thing, but if you click on one of those little drop downs, you have a choice to do like 2-day month or 1-day month on there. So, and you can utilize the same thing for currency, numbers. Again, if you want a consistent look and feel across your reports, then I would encourage you to do a lot of this formatting in the universe. My last slide, it's good, good that you were a little later there because I was a little shorter there, is, again, the world according to Cindy, but a lot of other people agree with me, never, ever, ever, ever put a list of values on a date. There are some places that I worked back in the McKesson days that we had a date table that had, I don't even know how many friggin' hundreds of years in it, and so all of our date objects were linked back to the date table. So when you put a list of values on a date object, it's going to go back and return